tomorrow.
And I was going to say it was nice today, but now on a Monday, boy, it's really going to hit hard tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to give us a good day to finish out the weekend, but rain and storms return going into Monday. But Tuesday and Wednesday, rain chances start to taper off. Wednesday, not even a rain chance as of right now. It's going to be perfect for a Trash Panda game.
Perfect.
Upper 80s, and then the rain comes back into the forecast to go into the weekend, because why wouldn't it? That's been the pattern for the past few weeks. And then it sticks around going into the beginning of the work week. Temperatures are going to fluctuate out of the upper and mid 80s, and then, as you know it, summertime muggy mornings are back.
That's right. It's that time of the year. Thanks for watching WAAY 31 News at 10. Stay right where you are. WAAY 31 Law Call is coming up next.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions on anything from car accidents to workers' comp questions, injuries on the job, things about your property, divorce, whatever kind of legal question you've got tonight, call in. You can call in and be live on the air. The number's 256-536-0077. Or you can text us to that same number and we will have some of your text questions. We've got some of those rolling in. You can also email your questions any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waytv.com on any topic, any legal topic, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out and we will have some of your email questions with us tonight. Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake League. And Brooks, good to have you here tonight.
Really good to be here tonight, yeah.
We like to, while we're getting some calls logged in, we've got tonight's You Make the Law Call video. We pulled this up. So talk about on-the-job injuries. Okay, so he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. But clearly, whatever is going on with this machine, he's going to have some abdominal injuries, and you can't quite tell whether his coworker there is clueless or was he helping in any way. So when you're looking at something like that, you guys do personal injury cases. Is this a workers' comp case? Can you sue your coworker if he did this accidentally or on purpose?
Let's kind of break this apart. The first thing that I would think, and the first thing that we know, is that this incident, this injury happened while he was on the job.
Yep.
And in the state of Alabama, when you get hurt while you're on the job, your only real recourse is for a workers' compensation claim. So generally your employer has workers' compensation insurance. You get hurt, your workers' compensation insurance. If you are significantly and seriously injured, meaning you're disabled and can't go to work, your workers' compensation insurance will pay you a percentage of your average weekly wage for the time that you are out, and then also they pay your medical bills. And you know, we've got a very difficult system, not a very great system in the state of Alabama, but that's when you are an employee and you get injured on the job, that's what you're left with. But what we do when we're looking at these kinds of situations is we evaluate, are there any other types of claims that this fellow may be entitled to? Well, and this is the unfortunate thing you ask about a co-employee, under the law in the state of Alabama, you can't bring an action against a co-employee, generally speaking. Okay. So the fact that this fellow may have pushed a wrong button, not going to be able to bring an action against that other co-employee under Alabama law. But what I wonder is, did this machine malfunction?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's doing what it's supposed to do.
No, it doesn't. Or the other option is, was there a safety device on this machine that should have kept it from closing that was removed by the employer?
Okay, so what does that do to your case?
So there's a couple of things. So if this machine malfunctioned, then in the state of Alabama, we have what's potentially called a third-party liability claim. And the best way I can explain it in this kind of scenario is that if you are driving a car for your work, and then somebody runs a red light and hits you, you're on the job, so you have a workers' compensation claim, but you also have a claim against the driver of the car that ran the red light. So in this scenario, we may have a claim for a product's liability situation. Well, this is a product, it malfunctioned. Now, perhaps this product shouldn't have malfunctioned, it was a manufacturer's defect. You may have a claim against the product manufacturer. And if there was a safety guard removed, that's one of those weird quirks of Alabama law, you may have a claim in a very rare situation against your own employer.
So you get more money, or what would it turn into?
That's exactly right. It would turn into a negligence claim against your employer, and under workers' compensation law in the state of Alabama, you are only entitled to your time off, a percentage of your time off, and then your medical bills.
Okay.
Now, You're not entitled to pain and suffering, to mental anguish,
Okay.
to other permanent injury, those kinds of things that you
Yeah.
may be entitled to if you had a claim directly against your
Okay.
employer.
Okay.
So there is an opportunity there. You know, it looks like to me that the guy pushed the wrong button, but you have to investigate all of those things to see
Yeah.
what really happened.
Surprised we have even
Right.
video of it. Most
I know,
most
I know.
most workplaces wouldn't have that. We've got callers waiting. We've got Charles with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Charles. Thanks for calling tonight. What's your question?
Thanks for taking my call. Yes, I was hit by one of your large stores, department stores in Huntsville.
Okay.
I was a pedestrian walking, and a vehicle come down the aisleway in the parking lot and hit the mirror, hit me in the head,
Oh, wow.
knocked me unconscious, cracked 3 ribs,
Wow.
lost my teeth, and a fractured skull.
Wow.
So I was wondering, beg your pardon?
Wow, you're lucky to be with us,
Golly,
Charles.
Charles.
Yes, I am, and that happened about a year ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, and don't tell us what the store is, but was it another shopper or somebody, or was it somebody that worked with the store that hit you?
Another shopper.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, Charles, did you happen to get the name of this other shopper?
What? That happened a year ago.
Did you get a tag
the
number or
police
anything?
called me about 2 weeks ago, said they found the vehicle,
Hey,
the
good.
tag number, and the owner's name, and they got the address of the people.
Excellent. Okay, so if it's in the state of Alabama, he's still got time,
That's right. You got 2 years in the state of Alabama to either bring a claim against someone or to actually file a lawsuit, to settle your claim or file a lawsuit. You know, Charles, these are the kinds of these pedestrian, and you're a pedestrian, you're walking. These pedestrian cases are something that we're familiar with. And a lot of times when we're dealing with a pedestrian versus a car incident, we'll immediately go and we'll pull the tapes if there's a video from the parking lot owner. And we can oftentimes ferret down, you know, what the tag number is, what happened, those kinds of things, and we've been able to track it down. I'm glad that the police were able to track it down. Of course, now the sleuth work really begins. You know, if you have to file a lawsuit against this individual, which it sounds like if you're just walking down an aisle and his car hits you, that's a situation where they may be negligent and then they left the scene. So that's a criminal sort of situation. So, you know, the first things first is tracking this person down and then potentially filing a lawsuit against that person, getting them served, and then being able to gather the information through the lawsuit would probably be the steps that you would need to go through. But like you know, your time is of the essence. You're a year in, so if you're going to do something about that, now's the time to take the step to get somebody involved, an attorney to help you to move you through. It sounds like you know, you were terribly injured, so it may be a situation that an attorney could help you out with.
We got a text question in. Somebody who says, I got hit by a car last year. Is the other insurance company still supposed to continue to pay for my injuries? So it sounds like maybe he got some sort of a recovery.
Right.
It's taken care of, but he's still got injuries. So if he's still hurting, can he get something else?
Let's unpack this. So first things first, if you settled your case, in other words, if you signed a release that releases the other party from any responsibility in exchange for an amount of money, then the answer to that question is going to be no, the insurance company does not have to keep paying for your injuries. If you didn't sign a release and you're still injured as a result of that wreck, then it may be a situation where you can continue a claim with the insurance company or get into litigation against the person, filing a lawsuit against the person who actually hit you. And I don't know the answer to those questions, but I think that one of the things you want to do is, even if you did sign what you think is a release, sometimes those releases that you sign, particularly if you weren't represented by an attorney, will allow for a certain amount of medical bills. I've seen it up to $5,000. I've seen it different numbers. So you may want to make sure if you did sign a release, look at what you actually signed so that you may be able to get some of those medical bills covered. But if you didn't sign a release, then there's a potential that you know, that those injuries could be covered, and you should definitely contact an attorney.
Teresa texted in. She said that storm damage a couple of weeks ago up here on the mountain. A tree from her neighbor's yard fell on her house, but the insurance company is saying that her insurance has to pay for it, not the neighbor's, even though the tree was from the neighbor's yard. Does that sound right?
You know, these are one of these things that we see a lot of questions about tree damage. You know, here we are in North Alabama, and most people don't know we have the most oak species of trees in the entire country. I mean, we've got a massive number of trees here, and then coupled with that, we get some really bad storms.
Yes.
So, you know, trees and bad storms don't really go hand in hand. So we get a lot of calls about what happens if my neighbor's tree falls in my yard. And here's the long and the short of it. If your neighbor's tree is healthy and there's no reason to believe that your neighbor's tree is going to blow over and damage your house, then the insurance company is right. It's going to be your responsibility to cover the damages, even though it's your neighbor's tree. However, if your neighbor's tree is diseased or dying or has been damaged and there is some reason to believe that that tree could fall, then it's going to be on your neighbors. I actually was personally involved in a situation where a neighbor's tree was dead and fell on my roof. His insurance company had to pay for it, so because his tree was dead. So that's the turn. Is the tree healthy on your neighbor's property? If it is not, it's going to be on the neighbor. If it is, it's going to be on you.
Okay. Good luck, Teresa. We've got Kimberly with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, I was wanting to know how can I be directed to someone that can help me. My apartment, I lost my apartment. It's been almost 2 years ago now. Okay. It was everything was on the the house apartment, the complex owner. I constantly had been calling her, telling her about the incident that was going on. The whole apartment was not even fit for me to even live in anymore.
Was there a fire? Is that what I'm understanding, Kimberly?
Yes, but the bathroom, I woke up the next morning and the bathroom, the whole ceiling was on fire. The apartment complex had been on fire for 2 days, so I'm thankful to even be alive.
Yep.
Kimberly, do you know, were you able to find out where the actual fire started?
Yes, it was 7 fire hazards inside of that apartment listed. The Huntsville fire department came out and they pulled the meters, so they ruled everything in my favor. I just haven't been able to find someone that can help me or direct me in that area.
Okay. Well, you know, let's unpack this a little bit. So whenever there's a fire in your apartment, the first thing that you hope, and it doesn't sound like you have, but the first thing that you hope is you have renter's insurance that can cover you for the personal property that's in your house or in your apartment. The second avenue, if you didn't have renter's insurance, is can you file a claim against the apartment complex? Well, if the apartment complex was negligent in causing the fire to occur, then you may have a claim against the apartment complex. And I can tell you that there's a lot of good, there's attorneys out there that can assist you with moving forward with a claim against the apartment complex to get the value of your property back. The one thing that you may want to start doing, if you haven't done this already, is make sure to write down all the things that you lost. If you have any photos anywhere about the things that were in your apartment when the fire happened, that's going to be very useful for an attorney to try to make a claim to get your property back. Because one of the things that I see, whether it's you making a claim against an individual apartment complex, or are you making a claim against your own insurance company, when the insurance company or the apartment complex, when it comes time for you to prove your damages, well, you say, well, I lost my stuff. I had a TV, I think, and I had 3 or 4 pairs of shoes, and that's not going to be sufficient for proof. It's one of the things that I tell folks is that once a year in January, go around and take photos of your entire house and all the stuff that's in your house. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and then take those photos and put them on a USB drive or something and put them outside of your house so that if something bad happens, say a tornado, say a fire, say a flood, then you have proof of the property that you lost. If you've got really valuable stuff like guitars or jewelry, make sure you have receipts or appraisals for those things that are kept in another place so that you don't give an insurance company or an apartment complex a get out of jail free card. But in answer to your question, Kimberly, there is a way you can make a claim against the apartment complex as long as you can show that they were negligent to cause the fire.
Good tip. I need to be taking pictures.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. It's Ask Us Anything night, so stay with us.
It's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks, featuring the knowledge and experience of attorney Michael Timberlake, attorney Will League, attorney Heath Brooks, attorney William Maservi, and hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. It's Ask Us Anything night. Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. They do personal injury cases especially. You're invited to call in 536-0077. You can also text to that number, and we've got a lot of text coming in. Okay, a text question. If you're an heir to property and the person signs a quitclaim deed to sell it without telling you, what can you do to stop that?
Well, here's the deal. If you are listed as an heir to property, now I don't know whether that's in your actual will,
right,
or whether you are just an heir of that person, that you're a son or you're a daughter, then you have a future interest in a piece of property. So when you have a future interest in a piece of property, that piece of property, if that person that you have a future interest in passes away and has a bunch of debt that's got to be paid off, then you may not have an interest in that piece of property. So if it's gotten rid of before you are able to take it to pay off debt, then you don't get that property. So it's difficult to say when you have a future interest, even though you are an heir, you're not the actual owner. Now, if the person who signed over the quitclaim deed didn't have a property interest, in other words, they didn't own the property, well, then they can't sign over a piece of property with a quitclaim deed if they didn't own it. And so one of the things that I would say is that if you need to file an action with the court, what you would do is you would file an action to quiet the title, and then the court would actually be able to say, okay, look, this quitclaim deed that's been filed is not valid. And please understand that a quitclaim deed, all it does is it transfers over whatever property interest the person who signed the quitclaim deed and transferred it over had. So they may have not had any interest in the property if they signed a quitclaim deed.
So if I sign a quitclaim deed on your house, I didn't have any rights to it anyway, so I didn't give anything away.
So you don't give anything away.
Okay. Text question, landlord's asking for a rent increase, but he's not fixing major issues with the house. Do I have to move? Does he have to fix those issues first? Particularly, it's a heating system that causes gas leaks, and he's been knowing about that for 3 months. Landlord won't fix it.
Well, I mean, here's the first thing. If the landlord is asking for a rent increase and you're at the end of your term, then you can move. I mean, you don't have to stay. If you don't agree with the price of the price of the increase in the rent, then you can always just move. If you want to stay, or if you want to enter into a new agreement with the landlord, understand that the landlord has a responsibility to keep that premises in a habitable condition. That means that they've got to provide clean water, they've got to provide access to heating and air, they've got to provide a vermin-free environment, free from mold. These are the basic things that a landlord has to provide when they're renting you a piece of property or a house, an apartment, or anything like that, a residence. So if there's gas leaking, which I think that's what was indicated in the text, if there's gas leaking, that's not a habitable environment. So landlord can't do that. You can file a claim or file a complaint with the Madison County Department of Health for that problem. But if there's gas leaking and the landlord's not fixing it and they're going up on rent, I think it's time to move to another place.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about garage doors, like big garage doors. You've got some cases going on. Be careful if you're around. You're talking major, the big ones, not just residential.
When you're dealing with the rental places where you go and you buy your unit and you store your stuff, storage units and things like that. They got the garage doors, or if you go to loading docks and things like that in some stores, they got garage doors in those stores. One of the things that we keep seeing is these doors actually have to be serviced. They have a spring in the top that keeps the door going up and keeps the door going down. Well, if you don't lubricate that spring, you don't check it every now and again, the door only goes up and down a certain number of times. And when that spring breaks, there's a lot of weight on that door. Yeah. And we see it a fair amount of time. So just be careful when you're walking under those things and make sure they've been upkept.
Walk fast.
That's right. That's right.
We've got Hillard on the line with a question from Tuscumbia. Hillard, you've got a question about insurance and trees. What's going on with your situation?
Well, there's a vacant lot next door to me, and the tree was rotten. It had a hole in the trunk of the tree.
Yep.
And the limbs was falling off of it. Well, it's just been happening for about 2 years now. The limbs been falling off of it. And then in March, when we had the tornado, the tree actually fell over on my house.
Yep.
And I was wondering, how do I find out who the insurance company is to claim to file a claim?
What county are you in?
Pardon me?
What county are you in?
Auburn County.
Walker?
Colbert County?
Colbert County. Okay. So the first things first is that, like we were talking about earlier, it's a dead tree. So whoever owns the lot has a responsibility of upkeeping their property. And so if that tree falls on your property, then they're responsible for the upkeep of that tree. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out who actually owns the property and the address. And maybe the best thing for you to do is go down to the Colbert County Probate office, and they'll be able to do a tax assessor search to see who actually owns that piece of property and the address. And then, of course, you've got the legwork to write a letter to that person to say, hey, look, your tree fell on my house and destroyed some of my property, and I need you to come and repair it. Make sure when you do that, though, that you have the estimates of repair costs, so that when you write a letter to the person who actually owns the vacant lot, that you can say, hey, look, these are my repair costs, these are my estimates, so that you have everything tied up with a neat red ribbon and a bow on it.
Okay, we've got a question with another storm situation. We've got a senior living in a house on Montesano. Tree falls on her house. She's kicked out of her house because of all these damages. Will her insurance, her homeowner's insurance, have to pay to put her up somewhere? And would they have to pay to put her up in something, appropriate for seniors?
If our house has some accommodations that allow for her to live in her house, but maybe not another hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because what's going to end up happening is it's going to be determined by what's actually in the contract. So when you sign a homeowner's insurance contract, most people don't read these things. We lawyers read them, and they give us nightmares because people don't typically read these contracts. But one of the things that it'll talk about is, in the event that your house is rendered uninhabitable, a tree goes through the roof, power's off, whatever the case may be, then you will then have, based upon your contract, have an amount of money that the insurance company will pay for you to go find another place to live. Now, that may be another house. You may have enough money to go have another house, or it may be a little amount, or you may not have that coverage. So it's going to be very dependent upon what the contract is. But if you need senior living, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And so it's going to be difficult for an insurance company. I don't know of a contract that would have that kind of money in it for a different residence.
Similar question. Somebody's car was hit, storm damage, hit inside the garage. Okay, Is that car insurance or is that homeowner's insurance going to cover
Generally,
it?
it's going to be car insurance going to cover that.
Okay.
Yep.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. Stay with us. 888-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon does family law, child custody, divorces, and the like. She can be reached at 256-539-7337 or www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
We got an email in from Kirk. Kirk says he was in an accident in February. His insurance paid to fix his truck. Now they're urging him to settle. He's always heard that if you go 3 times the total of medical and time missed from work, that's a good estimate. But the injury to his neck has never gone away, may cause him to miss work in the future. So how does he figure out an amount to ask for?
He may have permanent injuries.
Okay.
He may have, 3 times is just a number people throw a dart at a dartboard about. That's really not an accurate measure of what your damages would be, what your outstanding medical bills are, if you've got any disfigurement. There's a lot of different things that need to go into answering that question.
Okay.
My advice is pick up the phone and call a lawyer. They're going to be more apt to help you there.
Good luck with it, Kirk. Thanks for all your calls and questions. We'll see you next week.